Good evening. The time is now 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of the Beloit City Council to order. Next item is roll call. Can I get a roll call, please?
I show all councilors present.
Thank you. And today we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by two Boy Scout troops, Troop 615 and 621. So maybe we all stand at this time. In item 3, we have special orders of the day announcements, and item 3A is recognition of Boy Scouts of America Troop 621 and 615. All of us want to thank you for being here. We know you're working to get your citizenship merit badge, so congrats on that. And it's really good to see all of you here, and hopefully you get involved in government in the future. Thank you for being here again.
Thank you.
The next item is public hearings. Item 4A, consideration of conditional use permit to allow a warehouse and freight movement use in C-3 Community Commercial District for the property located at 1218 Cranston Road.
Community Development Director Julie Christensen.
Sean Dressler has applied for this conditional use to allow a warehouse and freight movement use in a C3 Community Commercial District for 1218 Cranston Road. As you may recall, this is vacant. It was Diamond Lanes, so it is a former bowling alley that they're planning to convert into a carpet and flooring warehouse to support the existing business that they have in Janesville. The bowling alley has been out of business since March of 2020, and this property has been, sitting vacant, and the property also, the owner has not been paying property taxes, so there is at least $40,000 due in past due property taxes. If this property were developed, then as a condition, as part of this, they would have to pay those taxes in full, so those would get paid at time of sale. They have submitted a floor plan, and it shows they intend to divide the existing space into heated and unheated sections, and they intend to remove the storefront entry doors and front windows and install an overhead door at the front and rear service door. They also have since then purchased the property adjacent to it, so they also own that property, and they did that partially because the fire department needed them to have a fire lane behind the building, and that way they controlled the land behind it. What is unique about this site is that there are multiple owners of that parking lot. And so sometimes buildings don't own the parking lot in front of them, sometimes they do, sometimes there's separate ownership of the parking lot. So it's been challenging in terms of redevelopment over the years. Plan Commission reviewed this at 2 meetings because the first meeting the applicant didn't attend, they laid it over so that they could talk to the applicant. And following that second meeting, they voted 5-2 to recommend approval of the CUP, subject to the 4 ordinance requirements included on the attached resolution. The plan commissioners who voted no were concerned about the limited work that would be completed on the building. There was also preference noted for redeveloping this commercial center similar to what occurred at the old Kmart, and concerns were raised that allowing this use could be detrimental to the neighborhood. The resolution before you tonight contains those 4 ordinance requirements, which are that the conditional use permit shall not become issued and valid until all delinquencies owed to the city of Beloit are paid in full as confirmed in writing by the city clerk treasurer. If all delinquencies are not paid within 1 year of council approval, this conditional use shall lapse as outlined in condition 4 below. The applicant shall install fire suppression sprinklers or subdivide the interior space into a configuration that does not require sprinklers before a certificate of occupancy will be issued. In addition, adequate exiting shall be provided before a certificate of occupancy will be issued, and the certificate of occupancy shall be issued before the building may be occupied or used as a warehouse. The applicant shall ensure emergency and maintenance access to the rear of the structure, either through a cross-access easement agreement with the adjacent owner that memorializes current conditions or through a new access point on the Dewey Avenue side. Any fire hydrants on the subject property shall be cleared and maintained. And then the applicant shall have 12 months from the date of the issuance to commence use of the property, or the conditional use shall lapse and be of no further effect. And this is on your agenda for action tonight, and also includes a city council conditional use decision form, which lays out the ordinance requirements and the evidence related to those ordinance requirements. And at the meeting before Plan Commission, the applicant did indicate that they were willing to accept all those conditions and would comply, because Mark asked him that question.
Thank you. At this time, the public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposed to this, please come forward at this time. Second call. Third call. Public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion to approve?
I would so move. Blakeley.
Motion by Blakeley, second by Preschel. Any discussion? Yes, Councilor Duncan.
Thank you. I just have one question. I asked this to Julie earlier. If she could just explain what would we talk about the other side being having freight movement. What would that look like? Would the trucks be stationed there? Would they be coming in and out? How would that work, Julie?
The trucks would be only there while they were unloading. So their intention is not to keep trucks there overnight. They're basically deliveries. So they would deliver things or pick up things, and they would just be there during the time it took to load and unload the trucks. So they would not, their plan is to not have any trucks parked in that parking lot.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Yeah, Councilor Preschel.
yeah, during the Plan Commission's discussions on the two occasions, there was concern that this large shopping area from the 60s would be, their concern was, should we not approve this and allow this to sit for a full redevelopment of that entire shopping area? And it is a problematic area, but as Julie said, it's like a jigsaw puzzle of multiple owners. And it's a hard area to work in because you have all these conflicting owners. And so the discussion revolved around, is it better to make sure that we get some use out of a vacant building, the back taxes, and that's at least an improvement over current conditions, or is it worth waiting? And I think they made the right decision at the 5-2 vote. It's also important to note that we all got emails about competition with surrounding carpet places. I think there's 2 others in the area. And that's not a reason for us to, an acceptable reason or legal reason for us to deny anything like this, any such consideration. So that was all discussed at the Plan Commission. I want to make that clear. And if you have any other questions, if it might have been answered, I can answer those too.
Thank you. Yes, Vice President Keys.
So my question could either be for Julie or Mark then, regarding the freight and the actual traffic of the trucks. With this being adjacent to Dewey, where there's residential houses, should have families and children, I'm just concerned of the increase of truck traffic and truck traffic that's there to just unload, load, and leave. Do we know where their intended routes? Will it be on the residential road? Is that road not, are freight trucks not allowed on that road? So
We did not ask that, Plan Commission didn't ask that question, neither did staff. So I actually don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if Dewey is, if you can have trucks on there. Although usually if you're going to a place, you know, you're delivering to a place, you can go on those streets. But I just don't have an answer to the question. Because I don't recall us talking about it, unless you remember something I don't, Mark.
I remember it being, these are semis delivering materials to the warehouse. They're not being stored or distributed from there. I'm going to pull the map up here.
So they're actual semis versus like carpet
Well,
or vans?
I don't know
or-
that they're big semis. I
They're
think
not,
they're
yeah,
short
they're
trucks.
they're not huge. To point of fact, Dewey, the Dewey Road you're talking about there, is entirely commercial. There are no homes on it. It terminates at the at the Educators Credit Union, there is no through, Dewey Road is not a through
No,
road there.
it's not a through.
So everything's going to come off of Cranston and through the parking lot. There's really no issues with that. Everything on that strip is all commercial. There's a couple of insurance agencies. I can't really see what they are, and I just don't remember offhand. It's not a place I spend a lot of time going.
Is there a credit union down there too?
There's a credit union, the tobacco shack's out in the frontage, right in front of this building. Ironically, the complaints we heard about the condition of the parking lot, this particular one happens to have the best-looking parking lot of all of the areas out there, so that didn't really have a lot of weight when I was thinking of it. It's just, it's a bootstrap type operation. I'm not expecting, it's not gonna look like Shopko when they're done remodeling, and that was some of the disappointment involved. But it's going to be a substantial improvement, and considering how disjointed this whole area is, this legacy development, I don't even know, I always thought it was in the town of Beloit until I discovered a few years ago that it's not. And I just was, it's just an odd development that, right out of the 60s, right out of the early 60s, and nobody would do that anymore. So what its future holds, I do not know, and I don't want to wait 5 or 10 or 15 years to find out. I just don't think it's in our best interest or in the best interest of our city.
So what I'm hearing is that there are no residential properties that the semis would be or the trucks would be hauling freight past, correct?
No, but as an office commercial,
Yep.
Person on
Okay.
Dewey there, I would be concerned about semis in front of our businesses. Yeah, that would interfere with that. It's a legitimate question,
Yeah.
even though, despite not being residential.
But
But we were assured when we discussed that at the meeting that it wasn't going to be at large volumes and it wasn't going to be for long times.
thank you.
In fact, it was specifically asked, is it going to look like Office Pro where Staples used to be? And we were specifically told no. So,
Yeah, they weren't going to be parking them there overnight or anything like that.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 5 is public comments.
Now, we've reached the point of the agenda where members of the public may speak to council about items that may come before us in the future. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and you refrain from any personal attacks on council or staff. I believe we have a written comment submitted today, too.
I have 3 comments or speakers that are here today and 1 written comment. I'll do the written comment first. So this was submitted by Rose Ducharme. On July 23rd, 2021, I was violently bitten by a neighbor's male German Shepherd when it was attached to 2 leashes attached to each other and then to him, which gave way. The owner was sleeping and not observing his dog. I was 1 property over from where the dog was located when I was attacked. This dog was found guilty by animal control in observance of the current dog out of bounds ordinance. 3 weeks later, I observed the dog running loose in its yard with the owner. It then ran into the street. I then called animal control to report the dog being loose. When animal control came, they advised only when the dog left its property is it guilty of out of bounds. Currently, animals do not have to be restrained on their property. Upon learning this, I got in touch with Councilman Mark Preschel to get this ordinance updated to include the restrictions for animals on their property. While waiting for the ordinance to be updated, I continued to take my leashed dog on walks and had several encounters. Between August and November 2021, while on a sidewalk in front of a house, a small dog came running towards us unleashed. The owners were right behind it and grabbed it before it got to us and profusely apologized. Number 2, while across the street walking my leashed dog, a boxer came running out of its yard, going into the street on his way to me. I raised my scooper for protection, which caused the dog to stop. The owner appeared, and I requested he get control of his dog, upon which he became very belligerent towards me. Then, with the dog still in the street, many vehicles going both ways had to stop to avoid hitting the dog. I mentioned again to the owner to once again get control of his dog, and he became belligerent towards me again. I decided to physically leave the area to keep myself and my dog safe. 3. When walking my dog in a different area to avoid the man in situation 2, I must have been walking on a portion of a man's property that angered him. He let his dog loose to run up to my dog and me without warning. He then requested I get off his fricking grass, though he used a word more derogatory than the word frickin'. So in summation, you can tell since July I have had numerous bad experiences with dogs and their owners due to there not being any restraint rules for animals when on their property. I believe with everything I hold dear that I am not the only person in this great city that has had these types of experiences. I believe they just didn't know who to talk to other than animal control, and they could only enforce a law if the dog was off the property. We as citizens of Beloit deserve protection when we are on a sidewalk or walking in the road without fear of being chased by an animal. I implore you to vote yes for the update to the out-of-bounds ordinance. Our first speaker here tonight is Tom Larson.
Hello, I'm Tom Larson. I live at 2303 North Street, and my business is at 1348 Division Street. Thomas Jefferson once said, "The course of history shows that as a government grows, liberty decreases." I believe before we rush to change the current dog ordinance, we need to investigate, ask questions, and review existing ordinances. We need to know the details of the incident that has inspired a city councilor, city manager, city attorney, Beloit Police Department to change our current animal ordinance. Questions: was there a specific incident that endangered public safety involving a dog? Was a report filed, and when? If there was an incident, we need to identify the owners involved and put all the facts on the table with complete transparency to the public. Without any facts or incidences and the voice of one concerned citizen, this seems only on the surface to be a grudge complaint against neighbors, not a basis to change our current ordinance. To add any further language to the Beloit current code would be discriminatory against good dog owners. No changes need to be made to the current code. Rather, an investigation into the current practices of code enforcement. The focus must be on misbehaving dogs and their owners under the current animal codes and dog license compliant requirements. The city of Beloit has an enforcement crisis. I say no to these changes of the ordinance. Thank you.
Our second speaker is Susan Adams.
I'm Susan Adams, 703 Milwaukee Road, and I'm speaking for the League of Women Voters Beloit as the president. We are pleased to endorse Beloit's plan or decision to join the Green Tier Legacy Communities, and we are pleased that there is a commission, the Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Commission, that has been given purview over sustainability. And we know that the next step is developing a climate action plan, and we look forward to looking at the climate action plan that is developed. Thank you.
Our third speaker is Steve Howland.
Steve Howland, 1617 Emerson Street, Beloit. I wish to address the council and administration concerning homelessness in Beloit. I believe we are experiencing a crisis at this point that needs urgent attention, especially as it relates to young persons in our schools. The numbers are daunting, currently over 300 students, and the capacity of the system to respond is far too limited. I recently have become involved with the Beloit Area Task Force on Homelessness as a result of some conversations with school personnel working on this issue. I went to the Learning Academy to drop off some gift cards in response to an article in the paper, something that I understand members of the City Council are doing as well. And listening and talking with the personnel, my heart and mind moved me to, as a resident of Beloit, become more involved. I understand that the city manager, the economic development director, and the planning and building services director are meeting with some of the leadership of the task group this week to explore facts, needs, resources, and possible solutions for devoting more of the city's time and attention to its homeless residents. I also understand that most of our homeless adults are actually employed, which would indicate that in addition to this crisis being exacerbated by the COVID pandemic, it is powerfully linked to ongoing issues of employment, discrimination, education, transportation, housing, especially affordable housing, and the lack of legal assistance available to these persons. We tend to groan every time the state test scores come out for our schools, and often start to point the finger of blame without doing the deeper work of uncovering and addressing the bedrock issues. I hope that these explorations with the task force will be more than just talk and will make possible for the city to act in concert with the Beloit School District, Rock County Human Services, as well as other county and community service providers. I hope they also will lead to the creation of a dedicated position of Homeless Services Navigator for the city of Beloit. Thank you. I know that several members of the council, perhaps all, as well as the city manager, share these concerns. May our concerns become actions.
Item 6 is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda. I apologize.
So we have the consent agenda. Would any council member like anything removed from the consent agenda?
6F, please.
That's been removed. Any other council member like anything else removed from the consent agenda? Thank you. Thank you so much. So for anyone that was listening, 6F has been removed from the consent agenda. Would any other council member like anything else removed? If not, the consent agenda consists of items 6A through 6E and 6G, 6H. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Dunkin, second by Preschel. Any discussion? Not. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 6F, consideration of Resolution 2021-161, authorizing final payment of Public Works Contract C20-08 sidewalk improvements.
We have Public Works Director Laura Williamson here tonight.
Good evening, councilors. You have before you a resolution that would authorize the final payment of Public Works Contract C20-08 for sidewalk improvements. It is the final payment for the contractor. This was for sidewalk work that occurred for sidewalks that were identified on our program for both 2019 and 2020. As you may recall, during that time, we did start the pandemic. The council had asked that we pause our sidewalk program for a few months. It was then reinstituted back in June of 2020, so this is work that we had from 19 and 20.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion by Leavy, second by Preschel. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah.
The next item is item 7, licenses. There are none. Item 8 is ordinances. Item 8A, consideration of ordinance number 3728, amending the zoning district map from R-1B, single-family residential, to C-2, neighborhood commercial, for the property located at 1112 Garfield Avenue.
And since it's second reading, we'll forego the presentation. So do we have a motion to approve? Motion by Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Preschel. Any discussion?
I just wanted to,
Yeah, Councilor.
I'm looking forward to the improvements made at this location on one of the busier intersections in the city of Beloit. And I don't know if there's any plans on this, because we haven't got to the site plan part of that yet, but I'm hoping they'll look at the traffic in and out patterns at that location, that this new build will create an opportunity to maybe improve some of that. But right now, I'm very happy to see that Harry's got big plans for this place and other places in town, and it can only improve things there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 8B, consideration of ordinance number 3730, establishing no parking regulations along Turnberry Court.
Same thing, second reading. So do we have a motion approved by Leavy? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Blakeley. Any discussion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 8C, consideration of ordinance number 3732, substitute amendment number 1, establishing a loading zone along Forest Avenue between McKinley Avenue and Cleveland Street, south side.
Since the second reading, do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the ordinance to, for the timing and reflect from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m.
Motion.
Okay, there's been a motion to amend the time of loading zone from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Motion made by Vice President Keys, second by Duncan. Any discussion? Yes, Councilor Forbeck. Okay, your mic's on.
Your mic is on. There you go.
There you go.
Just a comment for the public to know that the First Amendment that we are now amending said 7:30 to 4:30. And in our discussion, we just think that saying 7 to 5 is going to be better, and there can be enforcement then. And this is just going to help the school even more and the parents with the in and out from the kids.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? Councilor Preschel?
I just want to thank staff and Beth Krueger, our city attorney, for coming up with a nice solution to the concerns I had and I had expressed at the Plan Commission too, or at the Traffic Review Commission, sorry. And to deal with this and make it a good solution for both residents and schools.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Vice President Keys?
As it was written before this amendment, I proposed, as Councilor Forbeck said, it would start at 7:30 a.m. and school often starts at 7:30 a.m. So drop-off is before that. So then this would be accommodating to the parents prior to the school.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I would just like to add, it sounds like the state of Wisconsin needs to update their minimum requirements or their guidelines or whatever they are that we base this on. They're a little out of date, I think.
Any further comments or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment passes. Now onto the merits. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Preschel. Second by Forbeck. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 8D, consideration of ordinance number 3735 to amend section 15.16 sub 1 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to animals not to run at large.
And our city attorney, Beth Krueger, will present.
Good evening. I was asked to draft an amendment to the current ordinance related to animals running at large. The current ordinance does not require restraint when the animal is on the owner's property. The draft of the ordinance before you for your consideration this evening would require that any animal that's on its own property be restrained in some fashion. It may either be on a leash, it can be held by a person, it can be tethered, whether it's to a person or to a inanimate object, or you could have fencing, whether that be electronic underground fencing or just regular fencing. So the distinction between this code and the current code, or this new ordinance and the current code, is the requirement that while the animal is on its own property, that it be properly restrained to avoid any incidences subject to the one that you had heard about earlier in your public comment. I am happy to answer any questions, or if City Manager Luther would like to weigh in on her experience regarding at large ordinances, I'm available for questions.
City Manager Luther.
Yes, I would share with you that my experience in working in a number of communities in multiple states is that the language in its amended form before you this evening is the norm in urbanized settings. It is highly unusual in a city setting to not require an animal to be restrained on its property. I think this will improve public safety, and I believe that it will give our animal control officers more flexibility in dealing with problematic animals that they interact with. We'll be happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get into discussion, can I have a motion to lay this item over?
So moved.
Motion by Preschel. There's a second by Blakeley. And discussion? Councilor Preschel?
I guess I'll start off since I was contacted for this. We're attempting here to clarify some vague language that's in our current ordinance regarding the pet owner's responsibility to safely control their pets from running freely off or on their property. And this came about when an animal control officer told her there was nothing they could do about citing the owner when the pet attacked her on that third time, or off the property. Anyway, the animal control officer specifically said this is a problem, and if she wanted something done about it, she should contact the city council. Our animal control officers, and maybe our police force chief will know more about it. This is not the first time they've had problems with this ordinance and dealing with these kind of enforcement issues. And I was really stunned when I went through the ordinances and discovered this. I thought maybe I just didn't know how to read the legalese of the ordinances, but Beth confirmed later that there was indeed a vague language there that left you wondering and made it difficult to enforce anything. So they proceeded to draft an amendment or a change in the ordinance language. So that's how we got here today. I was astonished in November or in October September, my sister-in-law who lives in a rural area in Grant County, Illinois, had a very similar incident. And they cited that dog. In fact, that dog got removed from the owner's possession. But they had better enforcement guidelines for the sheriff in Grant County than we do in the city of Beloit. If we can restrict chickens to a chicken run on somebody's property, then I think we can make dog owners be responsible for controlling their pets on the same property. I don't think it's a stretch too far. It's clearly a public safety issue, and it clearly needs to be addressed, and they did a nice job. It took 3 months, and it's not as easy as it looks sometimes, but I think they've done a nice job with it here.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yeah, Regina. Councilor Dunkin.
First, I want to say that I'm so sorry about what happened with Miss Ducharme. That's the lady that Rose, who we heard so eloquently say that, what happened to her, and I just feel so terrible about that. But I have to say, I did receive some input from other community members, and some of the questions that they have is like, how many residents have had incidences like this occur, and how problematic is it? And for those, some taxpayers may end up having an added expense. And so I just want to know more clarity on that, I think would be a lot better. So that's what I'm asking for.
Yes, Councilor Leavy?
And I hear the concerns, but I guess when we talk about public safety and we have to look out for the citizens and everyone in the city, making sure that everyone is safe, I too, when I'm walking down the street and see a dog not chained or something in their yard, heading to the front yard, I don't know if that dog's going to stop. So I pause and sometimes go to the other side or turn around and go the other way because, and I hear a lot of owners say, well, they won't bite, and I always respond, they got teeth, right? I don't know. I don't know. The dog doesn't know me. I don't know the dog. The dog knows the owner, but sometimes when I go by homes, the owner is either on the side of the house or inside the house, but by the time they get out there, it could be too late. And I'm old, so I can't run like I used to, but I always look and say if there's kids walking down or riding their bikes down the street and a dog gets after them, are we going to wait till something happens and say, well, now we need to do something? Now's the time to do, look at public safety now. And I just think that if you have, I mean, my son, when he comes to town, he brings his dog, and I make sure that when you let that dog out, it's on the leash, because the dog knows you. The dog doesn't know everybody else. So we have to do what we can to make sure that we're keeping the public safe when they come by our home. And I think that's what we need to be looking at here when we talk about public safety. So I don't know if it's an isolated incident. I don't know. I think one person has come forward, but I truly believe that there may be other people out there that's feeling the same way. And then another thing that I know is not on the agenda, but I just want to throw it out there to the city manager, maybe the city attorney and the chief, that they're here, that we can kind of look at how we would address it, and I don't know how. But what about the pets that are not, that don't have owners, that's roaming the neighborhood, dogs, cats, that's roaming the neighborhood? I think we need to look at that as well, because I know if we take them to the Humane Society, they may spay or neuter and bring them back to the community. To me, that's not solving the issue. So I think this pet ordinance, I think this is a start that we talk about public safety, but we also have to somehow look at the stray animals as well. And I want to be clear, by saying this, it's not that I hate pets, that's not it. But when I'm hearing things and I'm saying we're here representing the entire city, we have to look at every aspect. And I think if we're going to look at people who own the pets, then somehow we need to look at a way of addressing the pets that's running loose, because there's neighbors that's calling me and saying, I don't own a cat. But every time I look out there in my yard, I got 10 of them in my yard. What are we doing about that? They go get spayed and neutered, they come back. So I know that's a huge issue. But I think it's somewhere down the road, city manager, if we could just put that somewhere where we can have a discussion on it to see, I don't know what we can do, but if we can have a discussion on that. But as far as going back to this original ordinance, I think we're looking at public safety, and I think it's something that we seriously need to look at, because one child being mauled by some dog, and it may not ever happen, but the one time it does, we're going to have residents coming forward saying, why didn't you do something before now? Thank you.
Vice President Keys, and then we'll go to Councilor Dunkin.
I just have a question for clarification for section 1A for number 2, for just defining if an animal is under control of a person. So I've been to appreciated other animals, my pet is not there, but that are trained so well, they are heeling at the heel of the owner, getting on and off public transportation with them. This is not here in Beloit, but there are some animals that are trained to a very, very high level. Would that be a citable, if they were minding their owner so well, would that be under control of the owner?
So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. The introductory clauses on 1 and 2 are meant to give you the guidance about what the rest of that paragraph says.
Okay.
So if the animal is tethered in the yard, Then you have the rest of that has the requirements regarding the tethering in the yard.
Okay.
If the animal is under control of a person, and that's just meant to say the person itself, not necessarily under the voice control. So if you have, and then there's the rest of the requirements. An animal that is strictly under voice control without being leashed or tethered would be in violation of this draft of the ordinance. There is no exception in here for voice control of the animal.
City Manager Luther?
As a matter of practice, we are going to be looking to enforce when an animal leaves their property. And so we would not be actively seeking to enforce, although it is possible, I imagine, but we would not be seeking to actively enforce that situation. However, in my experience, even animals who are trained to that degree, when they are outside and are service animals and others, they're still required to have some kind of constraint or restraint.
Councilor Duncan?
I just have another question. Under the current ordinance that we have, if a dog should, and correct me if I'm wrong, if a dog should harm someone, then the owner is the person that's charged for that. Is that correct?
If I can answer that question, I did prosecute here for about 10 years of my career here. If an animal leaves the owner's property and does bite an individual, the city has a dangerous animal ordinance that would probably apply to that. There are some exceptions for provocation elements of that offense, but if an animal were to leave the property and then bite or injure somebody, there are different codes that would apply to that. This is merely the at-large portion of any animal being off the owner's property or not properly constrained.
Councilor Blakeley?
Yes, I just wanted to say that it's a testament to all of us citizens that we love our pets. We also respect other human beings, and there are many, many responsible pet owners out there, and many, many good dogs and good cats. This is just meant, as the attorney and others have said, to make it possible that I don't want to reinterpret the law. You've heard what they said. But I did want to say, I appreciate everyone's avid interest in this and point out to the public that we have already passed this on to the next council meeting. So we're not actually making a decision on it this evening. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, I just have a question. Yes.
I still I'd just like to know how much, how is it more problematic? I'd just like to see data on that.
I'll defer to the city manager, city attorney, or the police chief.
No, city manager Luther addressed it, but I was just saying I didn't know the numbers where we are.
Yep, and I'm wondering if we could maybe get that information for the next meeting.
We could provide certainly the number of citations that people receive for animal running at large. I don't believe we would have a database of the specific facts behind every type of case, and there are as many cases as you have, there are different facts. So whether or not an animal was properly constrained and then got off the property, or a different type of at-large, I don't know if we'll be able to provide that level of detail. But we can certainly provide the number of citations related to animal violations of this particular code.
Councilor Duncan, would that be sufficient for you?
That would be sufficient. I would just feel better in making, I know it's going to come back to us, but in making a final decision, I would like to have that information first.
And
Councilor Preschel?
And of course, you won't have any data if there was never a report generated.
That is correct.
So all those times the animal control officer said, I'm sorry, I can't issue a citation, or there's nothing I can do here, those will not be recorded.
That is
and you will
absolutely
not have data.
correct. That is
Exactly.
correct.
That's what I expected. Thank you.
Councilor Leavy?
Okay, point of clarification for me then, based on what Councilor Preschel just said. So if we're requesting data to say how many times the code was violated, or people were in violation, but we're not going to get the accurate data, because according to what Councilor Preschel just said, that if a person complains and is not in violation of the old rule, but it is in violation of the new rule, you're not going to get the accurate data that we need. So we can bring forth the citations and say, we cited 100 people because they were a violation under the old law. But under this new law that we're looking at, we don't have that information. So I think, and help me if I'm wrong here, but I'm thinking the data that we would need to support this resolution is saying how many individuals were cited for their dog not being tethered properly or behind a fence to support this resolution. Because I think the data that we're going to receive is for the old one that we are trying to change. So I think the data is going to be skewed because you're only going to get what's documented, so you're not going to get the full scope. So yeah, you're going to get information for the people that reported they were cited because it applied by the law. But the new rule, you're not going to get that, so you're going to have a skewed data.
The only way you're
Skewed
going to
database.
the only way you're going to get data that pertains to the changes we want to, we're suggesting here in this change, in this new ordinance language, is to interview the animal control officers and get their testimony to when they have to say this.
But is that,
And is that, is that here's, I mean,
well, not so
it's
much
not
as
going to
that
be
hearsay,
hard data.
but let's also be careful. And I'm not making excuse for anybody, but do we want staff to spend a lot of time and energy in an area that's going to bring us inaccurate information?
Inadequate.
Inadequate information.
It'll be accurate, but it will be inaccurate.
When we're going to go back to where we are now, I just think we need to be fair to staff exactly what we want, what we're looking for, how much time is it going to be involved in doing that before we bring it back in 2 weeks. That's going to be a lot of work. That's just my opinion. Now, you can vote to do whatever you want to do, but I believe if we're going to get the data to support this, then we need to have accurate information, and I'm just afraid that we're not going to get it, but what we're looking for now.
And City Manager Luther, I believe you had your hand up for.
Right, so I think the city attorney and I both have, we can bring you what we have. And certainly it's not going to tell you what we could have prevented if this rule were in place. But I think you may be surprised by the number of dog bites and other issues that we do deal with on a fairly routine basis. I think that there isn't perhaps as much public understanding of how often that does still occur. And as a dog owner myself, I'm certainly, sensitive to those issues, but I also do think there's a very real public safety component to this. So we can bring you the information we have, which will at least give you a frame of reference for the kinds of issues that we currently deal with. It will not deal with the specific fact set because that is currently not against the rules to have your dog untethered or unleashed or without a fence. But I think it might give you a frame of reference for the types of issues that we do see and that potentially could be prevented more readily with this change in the ordinance.
I think it's fair to say we'd be able to get you the number of citations, let's say for the last 5 years. I don't want to use just 2 years because pandemic, but if we get you a longer understanding of the history of animal citations, and then I believe we can also obtain the bite order information. So if you do have a dog bite in Rock County, you do have to report that to the county authorities, and so we should be able to pull that information regardless of whether there was a citation issued for a violation of an ordinance.
Or maybe the calls for service also? If they call into the police department? No? Oh, okay.
Councilor Duncan, any further? Do you have something?
I was just saying, I just would like to get all of the information before making a decision.
Just one more thing.
Councilor Preschel?
I just want to say this seems like a very sensible thing to do, and I'll leave it at that.
Any further discussion? Before we move on, just for the members of the public, I know Councilor Blakeley touched on it, but this is a first reading, so it does come back on our second meeting in December for final action. So just so everybody knows, so a vote yes today does not mean that the ordinance is enacted tonight. With that, all those in favor of laying this item over, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 9 is appointments. There are none. Item 10, councilor activities and upcoming events.
Vice President Keys.
President Anderson. I wanted to speak to two things this evening, and the first is highlighting the homelessness crisis within the city. I brought this up last meeting, and the number of homeless youth was at 360 at the time. And I just want to highlight how this is a greater community issue, and that in the immediate short term, there are things that we can do, and I would just encourage, if you are in a position of privilege and ability to assist, to reach out to the school district or the Beloit Area Task Force on Homelessness. But the one thing that was actually mentioned earlier today is they're accepting gift cards to help youth at the Beloit Learning Academy, Robin Stutt. And I do want to take a moment to thank my fellow counselors, as this was brought up, like I said, last meeting and since. And each of the counselors has donated, and we have a holiday box full of gift cards that we are going to take to the Beloit Learning Academy, because we do recognize that there is an immediate need for whatever sort of action that we can do. And I really look forward to seeing how the community can come together, city, hopefully, county, and all the stakeholders with this, because a longer-term solution does need to be addressed and found. So thanks again to everyone who has donated, and hopefully thank you in advance to everyone who is considering. My second thing that I want to comment on is COVID. Unfortunately, we have several crises that we are facing. And the COVID with the Delta variant and the newer variant, the cases are greatly increasing. And Swedish American from the UW Extension recently said that they were over capacity, and they had over 100 patients in their hospital that were COVID positive. And the strain on the health system is very real. I am a healthcare trained professional, and just there, in addition, healthcare worker burnout is also very real. And so, although we do not have precautions that are in place and enforceable here in Wisconsin, I do ask everyone continue to apply all the basic pandemic principles, precautions and principles when inside in public. We've been at this for 18 months. We all know the routine. And so please, from here through the holidays, to keep everyone as healthy as possible, continue to mask, social distance in public, and let's minimize the excessive strain on the healthcare workers and hospitals as we can, and have a healthy holiday. That ends my report. Thank you.
Councilor Leavy? Councilor Blakeley?
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a chance to sit in on a school board meeting last week, just to be there as an observer, and I was really impressed with the articulateness of our school board members. Also, there were concerned citizens in the audience who spoke out very well on their own issues. And in the face of the anger from the public, the school board remained calm and discussed the matters that had been brought up. So I was pleased with them, and happy to see citizens participating. Last week, the BPL, the Beloit Public Library Foundation, held a reception in the library, followed by a talk by author Ann Bossum about her latest book. She's a Beloit College grad and has written more than a dozen books now, so watch for her books. They're nonfiction. She tends to pay a lot of attention to social issues, and her new book is about AIDS and how it spread around the world. Hollydazzle. There's a fun topic. I had a chance to go to Hollydazzle for a while, hanging at Hollydazzle. It was great fun. There were a lot of people walking around in our beautifully decorated downtown. So kudos to the DBA and everyone who participated in that. One last thing is that now that cold weather is getting here, Beloit Public Library is hosting its annual Mitten Tree. It's just a simple tree they have right inside the main entrance. People can contribute knit caps and mittens for children, for adults. They don't have to be homemade. And then other people who need these items to help get them through a cold winter. Perhaps some of the homeless people who take shelter at the library during the day. And others who hear about this can just drop in and take what they need off the tree. No questions asked. So please keep it in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Duncan?
Thank you, President Anderson. Before I begin, I want to ask that we keep the community of Waukesha and the victims and families who were affected by the tragedy at the holiday parade in our thoughts and prayers. Next, for my council report. I want to acknowledge Veterans Day, which was on Thursday, November 11th, and give thanks to all those who have served in the military and their families for their service and sacrifice. It was great to see the photos and information on the City of Beloit Facebook page of some of our city staff who are military veterans. Way to go, team, and thanks to Sarah Locke, our Director of Strategic Communications, for putting that beautiful tribute together. Also, heartfelt congratulations to Mr. Walter Knight. Mr. Knight was recognized at an event in his honor at the W.B. Kennedy Masonic Lodge a couple of weeks ago. Thank you, Mr. Knight, for paving the way for me and so many others, and for helping to make Beloit a better place for everyone. Next, I want to mention that I had the opportunity to walk the red carpet and unveil the new name of our baseball team, the Beloit Skycarp, at the ABC Supply Stadium. It's wonderful that we will keep our minor league team here in Beloit. I am very grateful to Quint Studer, Diane Hendricks, and all involved for their contribution and effort. I also want to share that I attended 2 meetings with the School District of Beloit, along with many community partners, participating in learning, visioning, and planning for the future of our Beloit Memorial High School academies. I want to thank Dr. Keyser, Monica, Christopa, and all those who took part in the Portrait of a Graduate endeavor to give our Beloit students a roadmap to success. Also, I attended a GBEDC, a Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and hosted a meeting along with my city council colleagues at the YMCA to encourage others to get engaged in our democracy by running for office, volunteering at the polls, or serving on a committee. It was great to have Susan Adams and Betty Carr from the League of Women Voters, Megan Miller, and Janelle Crary join in too. In addition, I attended the Visit Beloit Board of Directors meeting, the Diversity Action Team meeting, and went to Holidazzle downtown this weekend. It was wonderful to see the children out singing Christmas carols and having fun. I also had the honor to kick off Black Business Week at the Beloit Historical Society. A shout out to all those who created this platform so that entrepreneurs can live their dreams. That said, I want to congratulate our city manager, Lori Luther, for being appointed to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Board of Directors. The League is comprised of more than 600 members, large and small cities and villages representing both urban and rural Wisconsin. That is a really big deal. And we are so proud of you, Lori. Way to go and keep achieving. In closing, let's keep Gail Monahan and the family of former Council President Terry Monahan in our prayers. Terry passed away on September 12th of 2020, and recently there was a memorial service to celebrate his life. Terry was a caring person who made a difference in our community. He was a leader who will truly be missed, but will not be forgotten. This ends my council report for this evening.
Thank you. Councilor Preschel?
I just want to say I haven't been very social lately, and getting less so. Since summer, I've been fighting what I didn't know was a growing allergic reaction to a drug I've been on since my heart surgery. And it came to a head last Tuesday, and it was really kind of scary for my wife and everybody. But it's good to have an answer. It's good to know that it was that, and hopefully I'll be back on track here now and get a nice linear progression on recovery, which hasn't been happening. And I'm thankful for that and glad, and it was quite scary for my wife. So hopefully, and I don't know when it will be, but soon maybe, I'll be feeling up to being more social. There are two things going on. The BJSO, Beloit Janesville Symphony Orchestra, is putting on the full Nutcracker. Unfortunately, it's in Janesville because we don't really have a good venue for it here, but it's at the Janesville Performing Arts Center the weekend of the 17th, 18th, and 19th. And the tickets are very reasonable, and this is something you just don't see around here very often, the full Nutcracker with ballet. And also in downtown Beloit, the Friends of Beckman Mill 2022 calendar, photo calendar, is still available for purchase. I had the privilege of judging, being one of the judges in the contest, the photo contest, picking the winners that appeared in the calendar, and basically all the submissions appeared in the calendar. And it was my crazy idea to sell them in downtown Beloit at 3 outlets, which you're just going to have to go downtown Beloit and look for them. They're in 3 nice stores. Hint, one involves gifts for everybody. Another one involves making the guys look better. And the third one involves sweet treats that you won't regret much. So you can come downtown and find them. They're only $10, and all the proceeds go to the Friends of Beckman Mill to keep that wonderful place active and living history that it is. So that's where it ends, and don't make a liar out of me. Let's sell those calendars out. I promised we'd sell them out. Anyway, thank you very much, and it's really good to feel good again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Forbeck?
No report.
Oh, thank you. So, going to my report, I just really wanted to wish everybody, hope they had a good Thanksgiving. Holiday season's upon us. And I also got to enjoy some businesses downtown. I went to Small Business Saturday and got some Beloit mix at Northwoods Premium Confections. And I also got my favorite hot sauce in Beloit, the Cherry Bomb hot sauce at Bushel and Peck. Highly recommend both of those, not at the same time, of course. So, yeah, go out and support them, not only on Small Business Saturday, but all year. It's really important that we support our local economy, whether they're in a storefront, at home, or online. We need to make sure that our local businesses are supported. And then I just wanted to, remind everybody that our staff do a lot of amazing work. And I know that it comes with sometimes a little bit of pushback or concern. For example, Henry Avenue. I know a lot of people at that time were concerned that it wasn't going to be great. And I've driven on it several times, and I am very impressed. I'm very happy with it. And I've heard a lot of positivity from it. I know it's change. It's different. It's not what we're used to. But it's coming, and it's really helpful. I know the same thing's coming up with Cranston Road, so I just want to remind everybody, I know it's different. No, it's not what we used to have, but it's going to make things safer. We have experts that are doing this. It's not just us. We have people that have degrees in these fields that know what they're doing. So we're obviously trust them. We look through it, we ask questions, but they know what they're doing. They're experts. Just like all the other issues we have going on in the community, our staff are doing what they know is best. So I know that, we have a lot of big, tough, challenging topics coming up in the future. Some of them were asked about tonight. Our staff are working. Big things don't get solved overnight. Even things that seem small, like a, loose dog ordinance, takes a while. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of fact checking. So, yeah, I know it doesn't seem like it comes fast enough sometimes, but rest assured, our staff are working incredibly hard, and I just wanted to remind everybody of that. And with that, I will end my report and go to the next item.
Item 11 is City Manager's presentation. There are none. Item 12, reports from boards and city officers. Item 12A, consideration of Resolution 2021-170, approving the 2022 Business Improvement District Operation Plan and Budget.
We have our Downtown Beloit Association Executive Director, Shauna Lamine, here to present tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. So I only come once a year, so I like to give you guys a little bit of update about what we've been doing for the last year. Obviously, with COVID, we had to switch up a lot of things that we did, had to change a lot of things that we did, but we are thankful for our city staff and the EOC for all their guidance and help, and our committees and our boards members for all their hard work and dedication, and our volunteers who have made exponential changes throughout the last 18 months and have been really helpful. Our businesses continue to grow. We've actually had 9 new businesses this year alone, so I just wanted to mention a couple of them here tonight. So if you haven't seen the new Wright and Wagner loft apartments, they're amazing. If you haven't got a tour, you should. The only thing is they're already sold, already rented. So there's none available right now. They're going to start on phase 2 and phase 3. So hopefully you'll get a tour of those too. But they're really amazing if you haven't seen them. Arcane Archives is a new business that's on Broad Street. That is more of the Dungeons and Dragons kind of game place for any of your family members who like that kind of stuff. So go Christmas shopping there. We also had the ABC Supply Stadium, which we talked about, Miss Dunkin talked about. That has been a huge benefit to our downtown area, and we're very thankful for that. The Sky Carp are active over there, and they're planning lots of cool, fun things to do all winter long, so we're excited for that. We've had a lot of private investment in downtown, like the ones I've mentioned, plus many others. Different facade works happening, different sign works happening. So if you haven't been downtown, anybody here, it's really fun. It's a really cool space. We have 170 plus businesses. So if you haven't been downtown lately, you should come. We do have downtown Beloit gift cards that are sold from us that are good at all 170 businesses. So if you can't decide what to get your family member for Christmas, you can come to the one-stop shop and get them from us. So that's just our way of helping our businesses. We currently have a 1% vacancy rate downtown. So at the end of this year, we have one left that is under contract negotiations right now. So that may be less than 1% here soon, which is really great. Different events that we've had this year. We did bring back the Spring Wine Walk, the Beloit Farmers Market. We were able to expand that to have 71 vendors, which was more. Last year we were only able to have 47, so it was a little bit of a smaller footprint. We're hoping that next year, pandemic aside, we'll be able to get back to our 120 plus vendors that we normally have down there. Fridays in the Park sold a lot of lunches for our downtown restaurants, so that was really great. We were able to bring that back to go style, so all the restaurants put them in to-go boxes for everybody and able to eat right there at the park and have socialization at the park again, which was really nice. We were able to bring back street dance and Oktoberfest this year. Both were done on a smaller scale for safety of everybody, but we were able to do those, so that was really great. And our winter market, I'd like to talk a little bit more about because we started it last year. We had a huge draw. Our average was about 120 people every Saturday coming through the market. This year is already starting out to be better than that, so we're really excited about that. It's only our 5th week this past Saturday. We are planning on taking, please note, Christmas Day and New Year's Day both fall on Saturdays. We're not going to have markets those days. But otherwise, we are there for the full 6 months. So we're really excited about that. And you guys mentioned Small Business Saturday and Holidazzle. Both were very well attended. Very happy for our businesses. We had over 34 businesses staying open late last Friday night. So that was really great. And we brought in over 40 vendors. So they were all able to partake in the downtown holiday spirit. So it was really fun. So on to the important part about why I'm here is our budget. So last year was a very trying year, obviously with the pandemic. So this year we are being a little bit conservative in some of our numbers, especially where it comes to revenue, but we are definitely working up sponsorship opportunities, investment opportunities for different businesses and the community to invest in the downtown and keep the downtown great. So we're definitely on track for that. We'll be having all that information out the next week or so. So total income, our budget is $433,000. Expenses then would be $277,000. We are hoping to have carryover income that would help sustain us if something should happen, like the tragedy that happened with last year's pandemic starting. That hit our budget pretty hard. So we definitely want to make sure that we can keep carryover income so that way we can do what we do for our downtown businesses. And that is all that I have today to present. Does anybody have any questions?
Motion to approve, so we can.
So moved.
Yep, motion by Preschel, second by Keys. Okay, discussion, Mark Preschel.
I was just going to ask, your bid assessment has not changed in 4 years. You're not changing it this year.
No, we are not.
And I wanted to know if what kind of impacts were there over the pandemic, and were accommodations made to help businesses maybe go over and above, or there was a lot of moving things going on in the last 18 months or so, and I know you had to juggle a lot of things. And is there still good demand? I got a million questions because I'm not on the board anymore, but maybe after I'm done here, you can slide me in over there.
We'd love to have you. So yeah, we were very busy with the businesses, trying to find out what their needs were and address them accordingly. So we were able to do that all through the pandemic. A lot of the businesses just needed extra marketing support, so we were able to do that for them. Several of our businesses started their own events, which was amazing. We were so happy to do. So several of the boutiques started a She Shop Hop. They ended up holding 3 of those, which was really great. We were able to help to market all of those with our own financial means. And then we were also able to work with the state with different resources that they have. We are a Wisconsin Main Street community, and we're a national Main Street community. So we're able to tap into all those resources and give all that information to our businesses to apply for. Most of which were all grant funds that everybody was giving away, and we were able to get that to our businesses right away so they can apply.
I'm always one to remind people that the Downtown Beloit Association is a business improvement district funded mostly, almost entirely by the businesses in the downtown Beloit, and governed mostly by the businesses in the downtown Beloit area. It is not something the city is deeply involved with beyond the economic development part of it. That and maybe a little bit, as far as support goes from the Parks Department and stuff for the streetscape and stuff like that. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I think that's an accurate description, because oftentimes people wonder, why are they doing that? Why is the city doing that? Or why doesn't the city do this? It's the business district in downtown Beloit, the businesses.
But to clarify, we are the city. And so any initiatives that we take are governed by the city. So we're a board underneath you, much like the library, much like the parks.
Much like the library.
But anything that comes from EOC decisions, that comes to us. That is not a decision that we make.
Right. No, it's much like
Just
the
to
library.
clarify.
I'm sorry I didn't think of the library as a comparison. Very much like the library.
Yes, exactly.
Further discussion or comments? Not, Shauna, thank you. Always appreciated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item 12B, the city council may adjourn into closed session pursuant to section 19.85 sub 1 sub E Wisconsin stats to deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, namely to discuss the following: the possible conveyance of a portion of and property adjacent to 80/100 East Grand Avenue. The council will not reconvene into open session.
You have a motion to go into closed session? Motion by Duncan.
Second.
Second by Keys. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're now in closed session.